This podcast is brought to you by iPlayHockey.ca. iPlay is the leading hockey insurance provider to coaches, camp instructors, spring and summer hockey leagues, and tournaments across Canada. If you need insurance for hockey, iPlay has you covered. iPlay also provides hockey players and coaches with a wide range of free tools, drills, and skills in their drill vault to enhance on-ice performance, and they provide crucial off-ice knowledge as well. So if you need insurance for a hockey team, league, or camp, or if you just want to teach your kids some new drills, head on over to iPlayHockey.ca and check out their new website.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 253 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody Abrams and Melbourne with you. And guys, before we get into core four stories and the main meat and potatoes of this episode, just thought we could talk about the Toronto Blue Jays for a minute. That game 7 obviously was a heartbreaker, that close to winning their first World Series in 32 years since 1993. They, of course, won it back-to-back in 92 and 93. What an incredible run by this team that captivated an entire country. I was following it religiously. I know you guys were as well. The entire country was behind these Toronto Blue Jays. Just a thought or two on the season that was for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I definitely did not expect at the beginning of the season that they'd be going to the World Series and taking the Dodgers to Game 7, but incredible season, incredible runs by so many of those guys. Like Ernie Clement setting the record for hits in a postseason is just ridiculous, considering he was like a 68 overall in MLB The Show 2 years ago. It's just fun to see how all of them came together and they're that fun team that it kind of seemed like they had not just Canada behind them by the end of it. It was like everyone who also hates the Dodgers is cheering for the Blue Jays and respects the team and how close they were. And yeah, so it was fun, but man, what a gut-wrenching end. We were at a bar in Toronto watching the game, great atmosphere until that double play, and it's like it sucked the soul out of everyone in there. And
yeah,
we were talking, we feel bad for the band that was setting up to start playing after the game. Like they were, close to having maybe the best performance of their lives, and then all of a sudden it was a mass exodus as soon as the game was finished of everyone leaving the bar, and it looked rough for them. But yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, not much more to say about it, honestly. Like, for me, this whole World Series run here kind of, I feel like for a lot of fans, kind of got me back into baseball. Like, just watching how exciting it can be and how lovable this team is, like playing through injuries and having all of Canada behind them. And like you said, Case, also, the majority of the United States as well, because they're playing the hated Dodgers. Like, and this series had everything too. Like that 18-inning game, like that was incredible. You guys stayed up for that, I'm sure, as well as I did. That was a very, I was pretty tired the next day at work after that. and then, yeah, like how much closer can it get? Extra innings, Game 7. Two absolute juggernaut teams here. One is certainly paid to be a bunch of superstars and they're supposed to be the juggernaut. But then how good the Jays were, man. Like the pitching and the story with Trey Savage and Max Scherzer, like on the opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of experience. Like just so much happened in this series. It was so much fun to watch, and God, so close, but so far. It reminds you just how difficult it is to ultimately win in any sport, but especially in baseball where, a series can turn on one play, which it kind of did. Like we talked about the Game 6, the ball stuck in wall play.
Ball stuck in wall.
And then how close it was with IKF sliding into home and whether that foot was on the plate, and just moments. Like the moments in this series were incredible, and it was so much fun to watch. And final thing, just to kind of tie this back into hockey, this team reminded me so much of a hockey team. Like, not only do a lot of their players kind of just look like hockey players, like think about like an Addison Barger or an Ernie Clement, like the guys with the flow and whatnot, but guys like Bichette and Springer, like playing through injuries. And, it just reminded me so much of like a hockey team going through the playoffs, and it takes everybody, and, it takes your best players being your best players and, some of your lesser guys stepping up. Like, we just saw so much of that this series. It reminded me of a hockey team, and God, it was so much fun, but didn't quite get it done.
Our hearts are broken. The entire country is sad today, of course, after that. But again, just thank you. Quite frankly, thank you to the Blue Jays for an incredible run and giving us something to believe in and bringing an entire country together. So congrats on a great season. And I know that I'm going to be watching a lot more Blue Jays baseball starting next season. So thank you to the Toronto Blue Jays. All right, fellas, we'll try to keep on here and focus on hockey now. So let's get into core four stories to kick it off.
Core four.
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 All right, fellas, you know the drill. Core four stories, 4 headlines or newsy items in the hockey world that we'll go into here, starting with a pretty scary scene in the Flyers-Leafs game over the weekend. Chris Tanev goes down after colliding with Matvei Michkov. Looked like a pretty innocent little happening there, but ends up getting carried off on a stretcher. And the latest on Chris Tanev is that he is okay. He has been discharged from hospital, and he is now back in Toronto. So we'll start there. Chris Tanev, obviously an important piece on that Leafs blue line.
Yeah, definitely seemed like sort of a coincidental play, just nothing really to it. You hate to see a guy leave on a stretcher on any team, any player. You never want to see anyone get hurt. Hopefully a speedy recovery for him, but also for the Leafs, because they do need him on that back end. He's one of those players that you don't notice him because he's just doing all the right things all the time, and they need that.
Yeah, extremely important player. Had actually just returned from injury as well. He missed a handful of games due to an unrelated injury, and for him to come back and for that to happen in his first game back, and for it to look like such an innocent play, but then to be carried out on a stretcher, like scary stuff. And yeah, for a multitude of reasons. But number one, his health, like you wish him the best, but number two, like you guys have mentioned, he's just so important to that team. So you really hope that he can come back and be good down the stretch, because without him, all of a sudden that Leafs blue line that has been pretty good over the past couple seasons looks a little thin. So you hope for a speedy recovery for Chris Tanev.
Yeah, definitely. Love Chris Tanev, shot blocking machine, maybe the best at it in the NHL for sure. All right, fellas, our next 3 items here, it's all going to be about contracts, because we had some big deals handed out this week. Martin Necas with the Colorado Avalanche, they lock him up on an 8-year deal, $11.5 million. Is the AAV on that contract. The Avs were like, nope, we are not getting ourselves into the situation that we were in last season with Mikko Rantanen. There were obviously some questions around Necas and whether or not he would officially commit long-term to the Colorado Avalanche. He decides to do so, and Colorado was happy to oblige. So let's go into that now. Martin Necas and the long-term extension with the Avs.
Yeah, this one kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed like talks had kind of stalled, or maybe just weren't even happening, and then all of a sudden the contract signed, and here he is long-term. So this has been such a curious case in Colorado. You kind of wonder why they couldn't get something done with Rantanen, but I guess at the end of the day, they've got their guy now, and pretty reasonable contract considering how much the cap's going up. On pace to have a monster year at the moment in Colorado. They're all playing so well, but him in particular as well. So yeah, good contract. They're going to like that at some point in the near future.
Yeah, 17 points in 13 games to start this season with the Avs in his first full season. with the Avs. Career high 71 points though. And to me, like this contract, I mean, is a continuation and maybe the ending point, I guess, of the whole story involving Mikko Rantanen. Though I guess if they meet in the playoffs multiple times in the future, that story will continue on. But these two players will forever be tied together because of this whole debacle. And to me, this contract at 11.5 for 8 years just kind of shows and kind of proves how silly it is for a GM to draw a line in the sand when it comes to signing a really good player. You know, like Rantanen, their line in the sand was 12 million, I think, right? Like they didn't want to go over 12 million. And to me, it's like they probably should have just paid him. I know hindsight is 2020, but it just looks so silly now that they're paying Marty Necas, you know, $500,000 less per season when, you know, Mikko Rantanen is way better.
Not debating the fact that Mikko Rantanen is way better and has had that proven track record, but I got to point out that Necas had 83 points last year.
Oh, yes, he did.
That is fair. That's me looking at Hockey DB and not seeing that, you know, the combined numbers between the two teams. But
right.
Yeah, that's a good catch. Thanks, Case.
Yeah. No, and he's been a great fit there for sure. All right, fellas, moving on. Got a couple of items left here. Another young defenseman gets paid handsomely. Thomas Harley, $10.59 million for 8 years with the Dallas Stars. Obviously, a big part of their blue line. Heiskanen takes up a lot of the oxygen in that regard. But Harley is a heck of a defenseman in his own right. I was surprised at this one, not going to lie. BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. The new year is a blank space for you to write a new story. BetterHelp makes it more convenient to get you started. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy more comfortable and convenient. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Your next chapter starts today. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp online therapy at betterhelp.com/boysinthebooth in paid partnership with BetterHelp.
Yeah, this one kind of took me by surprise as well, but I guess when you look at it and you compare it to the $9 million babies we talked about 2 episodes ago or last episode, it kind of makes sense. He's 24. He's got a little bit more of a track record now, and he does play a good all-around game. He's gotten looks on Team Canada now. He put up great points in the playoffs for Dallas, kind of took over for that team in the playoffs. He was the guy for that run, and bit of a goal scorer, this Thomas Harley. In terms of defense, it kind of reminds me of a Dougie Hamilton back in the day when he was the leading goal scorer as a defenseman. But 16 goals last year, 15 goals the year before that. Adds a lot to the game. Decent sized body. A lot of good things here. So, again, that contract doesn't start till next year. Cap's going up like crazy. You're locking up you're going to have your 1 and 2 defense for a long time. I think that this is a good contract as well.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised by the timing. I didn't really hear much about it before the deal was actually signed. It kind of just came out of nowhere. But I wasn't surprised with the term or the number. I think it's a really good bet by Dallas here because really, like, this is a guy who was highly touted, you know, picked 18th overall, comes into the NHL as a 22-year-old, has back-to-back years where he's in and around 50 points. Like you said, Case, you know, 15 and 16 goals. Like, that's hard to do as a defenseman in general, let alone a young guy on a contending team. And kind of flew under the radar for those 2 seasons. You know, of course, he was known by some of the hardcore sickos, but I feel like it's easy to hide a bit when you're playing for a team like Dallas. And then he gets called to play on the Four Nations team, and everybody had eyes on that, and everybody kind of said to themselves, wow, like this kid can play. And even when he was called to the team, you know, the rumblings were really like this guy, like, you know, not an Evan Bouchard or not, someone else who could have fit that role, but he played really well, and he's kind of established himself as, a top tier offensive defenseman. And I think it's a pretty good bet going forward for the next 8 years.
Yeah, just to add to how much he's flown under the radar over the last few seasons, here's a crazy stat for you. He already has 57 playoff games played in his career.
That's wild.
27 points in those 57 games as well.
Crazy. Yeah, 19 in 23-24 and 18 in 24-25. That's the thing, like a contending team, and he's been this impactful at such a young age. Like, I think it's a really good bet.
Yeah, in that first year that he jumped in, 2022, 2023, he played 6 games in the regular season and then 19 in the playoffs. So reminds me of, I think it's Charlie McAvoy coming in as a rookie in the playoffs and just showing up big time.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah, that's a good call as well. No, I think it's a great bet for Dallas. And again, talking about their blue line, obviously Heiskanen gets a lot of the oxygen, but Harley, you can definitely put him into that elite category as well, just like Heiskanen, and he's certainly being paid because of it. All right, fellas, final item here for Core 4 Stories before we get into our main topic for this episode, Logan Cooley. So wrapping it up with another contract here, Cooley gets an 8-year deal as well to stay in Utah long-term with the Mammoth. This is their biggest contract yet that Ryan Smith and company have handed out, and it is a $10 million cap hit over those 8 seasons for Logan Cooley, the 3rd overall pick in 2022, and certainly one of the guys that they are building this thing around in Utah.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users. And when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This could be long-term the best contract that we've talked about so far here, because that's a pretty good cap hit for a guy who's potentially going to be well over a point per game in his career down the road. He's only 21 and currently a point per game place this season, and last year he had 65 points in 75 games. He's got just so much talent and like playmaking upside that this is going to look really good down the road.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's another great bet where, everyone knows the cap is rising. Why not lock these guys in for as long as you can? And that's what they did here with Logan Cooley. Like you said, Case, a lot of playmaking upside, but, you just look at his stats. 20 goals in his rookie year, 25 last year, already has 8 in just 12 games this season. So, like, the goal scoring's going up. That tells me he's getting more confident handling the puck. When he came into the league, I think people talked about his kind of slight frame, being just 6 feet tall, which isn't, that's kind of bang on average in the league, but he was a bit lighter. Now he's up to, listed as 191 pounds. And you watch him play, like he looks like a guy who is just confident, like absolutely dominated at college, absolutely dominated the World Juniors. And I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a dominating player at the NHL level as well. And he's well on his way to doing that now. So I really like the bet. Great deal from Utah.
Yeah, I could see this deal ending up being a bargain for the Utah Mammoth, that's for sure. And what really sticks out to me about Cooley is just his motor. Like, he just doesn't stop. He is all over the ice. You guys probably remember that ridiculous preseason goal that he scored in Australia a few years back. And again, that was an instance right there of his motor just completely took it from one end of the ice to the other. And so he's a special talent for sure. And, another really cool thing about Logan Cooley, too, looking at his background, he's a Pittsburgh kid, started out in Sidney Crosby's Little Penguins Learn to Play program, which is really awesome looking back at that. And now he just got an $80 million contract. So pretty cool, because he's kind of the first one that we've seen come out of Pennsylvania, come out of that program so far, and, instantly become one of the brightest young stars in the National Hockey League here. And now he just got $80 million.
It is crazy to think about him starting playing in Sid's hockey camp or whatever, the Little Penguins. He was born in 2004. Man, and he's already played in the league for 2 full seasons. And like, Sid doesn't seem that old, right? But then you think about it and it's like, well, yeah, like Cooley was born the year before Sid came into the league, and then presumably Sid started up his program, shortly thereafter. And yeah, it's insane to think about. I saw all the pictures of that when that story came out, and yeah, I couldn't believe it at the time, because to me, Sid doesn't feel like, a 40-year-old man or however old he is now. But it is crazy. Time flies.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, boys, let's get into our main topic for this episode, and it's change of scenery, one of our favorite themes here on the podcast, of course. So we're just going to talk about 3 players, one each, that we think would really benefit from a change of scenery, and it's just time for that for said player. So, Case, why don't you start us off here? Change of scenery.
Yeah, I've got one that I think maybe will surprise some people. Maybe it's going to be a bit controversial. Maybe it's too soon to be even going here, but I'm going to go with Andrei Svechnikov. And don't get me wrong, he's had some great production early on in the season in Carolina, early on in his career in Carolina, and he's been a big part of their success, especially the way he turns it on in the playoffs. He's just a different animal. But this is a guy who, after he was drafted 2nd overall and came on strong in his 2nd season in the league, I would have expected him to have multiple 30-goal seasons, maybe a season closer to 80 points. So far, his best is 69 in the only season that he has scored 30, which was 2021, 2022. And currently he's coming off of a lackluster 48-point season, has had a rough start to this season. It took him 9 games to get his first point. He has 2 goals, 1 assist in 11 games, and recently has been called out by Rod for his lack of effort and the struggles early on in the season. And that's resulted in him being moved down to the 3rd line. He's playing 14.53 a night. The 3rd line doesn't really suit him. He isn't a defensive forward. He hasn't been very physical. He has 7 hits in 11 games, which you kind of expect more with the way he plays, especially in the playoffs. 1 block, which all of this ended up with me dropping him in fantasy early on, because he was just doing nothing. He was a ghost out there. But there's so many positives to his game. He has a really good shot and he shoots often, has a nose for the net, plays a kind of borderline like power forward style that gets under the other team's skin at times. Still, only 25 years old, has a great contract, and we've seen the potential for the upside here with Svechnikov, obviously, and with him being drafted 2nd overall. But I think it might be a need of a change of scenery to live up to that potential at this point. And maybe this kind of makes sense for the team as well, because sure, all those positives might be a reason to keep him in the Kane system here, and especially for the playoffs, and they want to be, a Stanley Cup contender, which they are, but they've also been shown to be willing to make big moves to change things up enough to push them over the edge, which currently is the Eastern Conference Finals. And it kind of sounds like they want a second line center to push Stankoven over to the wing and kind of shore up that center core there. And that is kind of the big piece they're missing at this point. So if it means moving Svechnikov, who's playing on the third line, to get a top 6 forward who's going to produce right away for them, I think that makes sense. And he's going to fetch a very high price tag and certainly could get them a second line center.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we all know that he struggled out of the gate, and I mean, you more than anyone having him in fantasy, and I picked him up after you dropped him because I'm taking a bet. I got to take all the swings I can. My team isn't that great, and I have him in my other league, and I was kind of going through the same thing, so might as well double down. But yeah, I could see it. Like, this is certainly the case where, it's a guy with tons of upside, tons of offensive potential, and who knows, maybe outside of this system in Carolina, he could produce even more. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the ice time thing, because when it was 5 games in a row, 6 games in a row, 7 games, etc., to start the season when he didn't have a point, the first thing I did was look at his ice time, and it was very low. He was playing like 13 minutes a night. So that shows you that there's a lack of trust, a lack of confidence from the coach, maybe a bit of a relationship breakdown. So I could totally see it. And in terms of getting a center, I mean, join the club. I feel like every team in the East wants a center to shore up their center core. It's tough to do, but if you're dangling a trade chip like Andrei Svechnikov out there, that might entice a few teams. I'm thinking maybe like a Nazem Kadri.
I was just going to say Nazem Kadri, because especially when you look at the other guys that Calgary has brought in recently, they're all that like 23 to 25 years old, kind of looking to juice them for their potentials. And that sounds like Svechnikov at this point, and that'd be a great player to kind of retool, rebuild around. And Kadri, he just would fit perfectly in Carolina, I think.
Yeah, well, and he would add a different kind of element that they've been desperately trying to find over the past few years, right? Like a guy who can do sort of the other things, kind of the dirty, greasy things that you need in a playoff series so that your talented guys can go out there and score. And not saying Nas isn't talented, but he does bring those other elements. So he would slot in nicely at 2C. The question is, who says no in that trade? Where does the value lie? Like, is that a 1-for-1 that you could make? Because I think it's honestly closer than people think, just because Nas brings more intangibles. He does play down the middle of the ice. I don't know.
The only issue there is Kadri's contract. He's got like a few more years at 7-something to go, and he's 35 years old. So that's probably going to take his value down a little bit. If he was a rental, then I think it's definitely close, but that the value in that contract is probably going to weigh that down a bit. So they'd have to do some finagling there a bit.
Yeah, just to make it fit. But I mean, in terms of like him having term, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're Carolina, you look at it like, he's not a pure rental. We can afford to move a 25-year-old winger who we drafted 2nd overall, because we're going to get 3 more years of Kadri in. I'm not going to say his prime, but he's still a productive player for sure.
Absolutely. I thought about this as well. I think Kadri would be a perfect fit in Carolina. I think Rod Brind'Amour would just absolutely love to have him. So it's interesting you guys brought that up. I was thinking about that as well. The thing that really sticks out to me with Svechnikov, and it's a good pick case, I never thought about him needing a change of scenery, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's had trouble staying healthy, and he's obviously had a tough start to the season here. But the thing that strikes me is when I think about the Carolina Hurricanes now, before it was like the first two guys that you thought of, it was like Aho and Svechnikov. Those days are gone. You think about Aho, you think about Slavin, Jarvis, Ehlers, Stankoven. I just named, 4 forwards ahead of Svechnikov right there. He kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So I feel like just in conversation, that's another strong indicator right there that he is not being relied upon as much as in years past. You can see that with their lineup that we just looked at with him playing on the third line. But Carolina has other guys that they've committed to and other guys that drive the bus for this team, and Svechnikov is no longer one of those guys. And so it's another point that backs up this, this thought that he could use a change of scenery.
A guy who is on this team, who obviously is getting used to a change of scenery right now, but who has had a tough start, is Nick Ehlers as well. 0 goals so far through 11 games for Carolina. So if he starts going, no goals.
I had no idea.
Just 4 assists to start the season. So if he gets going offensively, I think it makes it a little easier to move a guy like Svechnikov because you're getting scoring elsewhere. Same with a guy like Taylor Hall. I think, provides similar production, but obviously for cheaper and wouldn't fetch the same return. So Case, I don't mind it in terms of a guy who could use a change of scenery. Why not Svechnikov?
No, definitely. I like the pick for sure. Chad.
This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, and once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Yes, so I had a couple guys here in terms of players who I thought needed to change of scenery. I'll only bring up one, and I'll save the other one for an honorable mention. But you guys might know who I want to talk about here. It's Nick Robertson on the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a guy in desperate need of a change of scenery, and honestly, I think if you were to ask, some of the pundits, the people with hockey podcasts, like the broadcasters, like who in the league needs a change of scenery the most, I think Nick Robertson might be right up there because he's been on this Leafs team for so long, but he's been on the cusp. He's sort of been on the edge. He's been a 13th forward. He's been a 12th forward. He's been playing, 13 minutes a night now for like 4 seasons. And it just seems like no matter what he does, no matter how hard he works, he can't earn the trust of the coach. And it seems like the same thing is happening this season. I will get into some of the numbers quickly just to kind of provide some context here. But just going back, like when he was drafted in 2019, he was a second rounder and he scored 55 goals in the OHL that year. Like this guy can clearly score, right? He came into the NHL right away as an undersized player and played 4 games in the bubble playoffs against Columbus and, looked really good, scored a goal. Since then, he's played 167 games in the NHL. He only has 35 goals, 27 assists for 62 points. But I think part of that is just opportunity. Like he's been playing down in the lineup the entire time virtually that he's been a Maple Leaf, despite the fact that, when he was on the Marlies, he was tearing it up offensively and scoring a ton of goals. He just never really got that opportunity with Toronto. So, Last year, he played 69 games for the Leafs, mainly due to, injuries to other players. Like, he came into the season sort of as like a 13th forward, ended up playing 69 games, scored 15 goals, and that's a career high. Had a good season. After making a trade request, by the way, early in the year, said like, "Hey guys, like, if I'm not going to play, send me somewhere else." And management said, "Respectfully, Nick, we're not going to get enough in return for you, so we're just going to keep you." So that's what they did. But in 11 games this year, he has 3 goals and 3 assists. But I have to point out that 5 of his 6 points, have occurred in the last 4 games since he started playing with Austin Matthews in the top 6. Like, it makes absolutely no sense that he's never had this opportunity before. But now, with some injuries, with the forward group looking thinner, with Marner gone and Nylander being out, the Leafs are desperate for scoring. And I got to tell you, Nick Robertson has looked like one of the hardest working Maple Leafs this year. He's just begging for a trade at this point. Like, unless he's going to play next to Austin Matthews for the rest of the season, which I doubt he's going to, he's just begging for a trade right now. And I just don't know if it's going to happen, but it would benefit him so much. This is a guy who people in and around the Leafs organization have mentioned, like Elliot Friedman, for example. He poked around this earlier in the year, and he said on 32 Thoughts that he thinks management in Toronto is a bit worried that if they do trade Nick Robertson, he's going to go off and score 20, 25 goals for another team. And my response to that is, okay, well, either trade him and whatever, it's a sunk cost, or it's a lost cause because you were never going to play him anyway, or just give him a chance and see what he can actually do. See if he can score 20 or 25 for you, which seems like they're trying to do now, but I don't know. We'll see going forward. So I think Nick Robertson is a prime candidate for a player who could benefit from a change of scenery. I could definitely see him scoring 25 for San Jose next season, but but I don't think it'll ever happen on the Maple Leafs because of roster construction. So what do you guys think of that, Nick Robertson?
Yeah, I think there's a spot in the middle where they give him a chance, let him raise his trade value, and then trade him. So that's kind of what's happening right now with all those points, playing with Austin Matthews, getting more ice time. It's like, yeah, just keep doing that until like you catch some eyes, you get more phone calls, and then make the trade. Because long term, I don't really know if I see him fitting in to that top 6. So
agreed.
If it's inevitable, then just strike when the iron's hot and do it then.
Yeah, I think if you're the Maple Leafs, what you try to do is you find another team with a player in a similar situation, and you just do a 1-for-1 swap, if you will. Like, the idea I've kind of had here over the last few minutes, like, what if you talk to the New York Rangers about a Robertson for Brennan Othmann kind of, swap? I mean, there's another young player who is younger than Robertson, but has yet to crack that NHL roster with the Rangers, and maybe looking for a change of scenery. I mean, there are a bunch of guys around the league, maybe not a bunch, but definitely others who are still young and, somewhat highly touted that could use a change of scenery. So I think if you're the Maple Leafs and you're kind of worried about Robertson going somewhere and popping off, and I'm a Sabres fan, I get it. Like, I get that fear, but I think the best way that you can avoid that, if you will, is if you find a trade partner with a young player in the same situation. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. But for right now, Chad, I agree. In the Leafs games that I've checked out lately, he has been very noticeable. So we'll see where this goes. But yeah, knew you were going to go with Robertson. And I mean, you can just rinse and repeat this one from, even 2 seasons ago. Like, this has been an ongoing thing for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's the main reason I had to bring it up, because, like, come on, like, what are we doing here? Either play the guy or trade him. Like, it doesn't help either side to just have this player disgruntled and kind of in limbo here. Like, is he important to your team or not? Like, it seems like the coach doesn't really trust him, but he also can score. Like, over the past few years, he's been really high in the league in terms of goals per 60 because he does score goals when he's out there, but he doesn't play a ton. So I've always kind of been of that mindset that, like, you just have to give him a chance. Like, just give him, 10, 15 games, stick him on the first line or top six. Like, it doesn't matter where he is, but play him, 15 to 18 minutes and just see, because they've never really done that. And, the other night, well, so for example, this season, he's averaging just 12-26 a night. Like, he's been playing essentially fourth line minutes, right? A little bit more at times. But the other night against Columbus, he played a career high 17-22, and he had a fantastic night. Over his entire career, though, he only averages 11:31 in average time on ice. So it just, I don't know. I feel like he's never really been given the opportunity. And granted, like, he hasn't necessarily stole that opportunity. He hasn't, like, went out there and grabbed the bull by the horns and, like, really seized the moment, right? Like, to do that, you would have to go out there and score 20 goals for a couple seasons in a row, which he just hasn't done, and it hasn't been close. But I feel like with a young player, especially a guy who's dealt with confidence issues like Nick, like, you just have to put him up there and see what he can do over an extended period of time, where he's not worried about, like, oh, if I turn this over, I'm playing on the fourth line or I'm scratched for the next 3 games, right? Like, it almost seems like they just have to give him an opportunity where he knows that he's going to be stuck there in the top 6 for an extended period of time just to see what he's got.
Well, they did it with Bobby McMahon, and they rewarded him with an extension. And I know he has had his ups and downs, but he's become one of the fixtures in that forward group. Not one of the fixtures, but, like, he's been consistently in that forward group lineup for the Maple Leafs. So I feel like, if you can give Bobby McMahon an opportunity like that, why can't you do the same for Nick Robertson?
Yeah, that's the thinking. We'll see if it happens or not, or we'll see if they trade him this year and he gets his change of scenery that he so desperately wants.
There we go. All right, you guys went with a couple of young guys, and I'm going to go with a veteran player who I think could really benefit from a change of scenery. He's had a tough start to the season. You guys might be surprised by this one. Maybe not. Might be a little premature, but I think Steven Stamkos could use a change of scenery out of Nashville. I know that it's only his second season with the team, but he's got 1 goal in 13 games. He's a -6, and I don't see it getting any better in Nashville. I mean, it's obviously better than last season to start, but I don't think they're a playoff team. None of us really do. And they're definitely not a contender. And I look at this roster and I'm asking myself the question, like, who do they have to get Stamkos the puck? Like, who do they have to transport it over to him? I mean, ideally you'd like it to be Philip Forsberg, but he's a goal scorer too. Jonathan Marchessault is a goal scorer as well. Those guys need to get the puck from others. And, again, like, you look at this lineup, I mean, they don't really have that one centerman who can feed these guys. Ryan O'Reilly is a fantastic player, but he's getting older and he can only do so much. So I just think with where Nashville's at, kind of lost a little bit as a team. I mean, we've talked about this before. We thought they won the summer going into last season, and then it was just a complete dumpster fire. It's clear that, this team is not ready to contend. I think they've hit the fast forward button here too early. It hasn't worked out so far, and clearly it's not working out for Stamkos right now. 1 goal in 13 games. So I really think Stamkos could could benefit from a change of scenery. But at the end of the day, it would be up to him. He's got a contract in Nashville with a no move clause, I believe. So it'll be up to him. But I think it's definitely something that he's got to be thinking about a little bit with the struggles that he's had there and with the struggles the team has had as a whole, performance-wise. So what do we think about that?
Yeah, he was someone that I looked at as well about needing a change of scenery. The one thing that made me kind of lean more towards going Svechnikov was that 2 more years at $8 million. At his age, with the kind of production he's having at the moment, it's going to make it harder for them to move him. But I think he's got to be moved at this point. It's kind of like, feels like a failed experiment at this point, and he still has a lot to give, and you could see him going to a playoff contender if they can eat some of that cap up and really contributing. I mean, he's a power play specialist, which is on the other side of the same coin. He's a power play merchant at times. Last year, 27 goals, 13 of them were on the power play. So there is value in that in the playoffs, and having a veteran leader like that and someone who can come in and score for you. So I completely see the need for a trade here. I just think it's going to be difficult for them to make it work.
I think a change of scenery doesn't necessarily mean brand new scenery. I think it could be scenery that you are very familiar with. You know, you've seen these trees before. You've seen that lake before. In fact, you won 2 cups with that lake and those trees, and you spent the first 15 years of your career there. Could we see a trade? You want him
to go to the Panthers?
Could we see a trade back to Tampa Bay? You know, 50% salary retained. We know Tampa has done this in the past with a guy like Ryan McDonough, who spent a bunch of years in Tampa, went to Nashville, no less, and then came back to Tampa. Could we see this with Steven Stamkos?
They did it with Yanni Gourde, too, and locked him up long term. So I could see it. You have to wonder, right? The other team I wonder about, this is a team on the rise, looking to make the playoffs. They've got cap room. They tried to sign Stamkos before he decided on Nashville. They actually took a run at Marchessault as well. The general manager knows him from his time in the Lightning organization. It's the Anaheim Ducks. I wonder about them for a guy like Stamkos, given the history. They took a run at him before. You've got a guy like Killorn there, who he is very familiar with. And obviously Pat Verbeek from his time in Tampa. I don't know. Again, this is just spitballing, but I wonder about them too. But obviously Tampa comes to mind right away, for sure.
2 points in 13 games is abysmal. And last year, I didn't realize this, just looking at his hockey DB, dash 36. Oh my God, dash 36 last year is incredible.
Well, he's a dash 21 the year before that with Tampa. And so, but
yikes.
I mean, it's Steven Stamkos. He still has lots to give. And
for sure,
I just think that the most challenging thing here is that no move clause and 2 more years at $8 million. But yeah, you find the right fit. This could work, and he could go back to his scoring ways. And you just know he's got some clutch goals in him left for the playoffs.
100%.
Totally. I tell you, like this Anaheim thing, you know, I'll go back to it again for a second. Like, I think Stamkos on the wing with Carlson or McTavish would look pretty good.
Yeah, why not? Carlson's off to a great start this year.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
Okay, I had an honorable mention. Should I fire that off now?
Yep.
It's Alexis Lafreniere, guys. Off to kind of a slow start. It's a guy, like, obviously had a ton of potential. We talked about it for years. I didn't think the coaches knew how to use this player over the past 7, however many years it's been, 5 seasons since he's been in the league. And it just seems like time has maybe run out for him in New York, similar to a guy like Capo Caco, who they already moved on from. just seems like he doesn't really fit what they're trying to do there. He hasn't reached his potential. I think he could benefit from a change of scenery. Thoughts on Alexis Lafreniere as an honorable mention here?
Yeah, I mean, another guy I quickly looked into when trying to choose who I wanted to talk about, but I just felt like I'd be beating a dead horse there because we've been saying this for so long. Like, number one overall pick, so much potential going into his NHL career, but it's just fizzling out in New York, and they just continue to botch these types of players. So it's, I didn't want to be the Devils fan, just piling onto the Rangers, but I'm glad someone brought this up.
Yeah. Why can't they develop guys? I don't understand. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
I think, like, you look at their recent coaches, Gerard Gallant, Peter Laviolette, and now Mike Sullivan. Mike Sullivan, I think, is, by far the best out of the three, but these guys are veteran coaches who want to win with veteran players. And when Mike Sullivan took the job with the Rangers, I didn't hear him once mention Alexei's name. He talked about JT Miller getting the C, talked about Zibanejad having to bounce back, Panarin, all these guys. Maybe the one young guy that he talked about was Adam Fox, who's still young. So I feel like coaching has had a lot to do with it, with the Rangers organization. The coaches that they've had, again, Gallant, Laviolette, and Sullivan, the most recent ones, Sullivan obviously being there this year, they don't give these young players the opportunities. And going back to Laviolette, I got to tell you, like, there was no way a guy like Connor McMichael was going to break out the way he has in Washington under Peter Laviolette. And that's another example there. So for me, it comes down to the coaching that the New York Rangers have had over the last couple of years.
I totally agree with that. Like, we talked it to death over the past few seasons, right?
Yeah.
Like, we think that they've been totally mismanaged, not being played enough. And, Lafreniere doesn't have the excuse anymore that he's not being played enough, because this season alone, he's averaging 18.04 a night. So that's not an excuse anymore. He doesn't have the excuse of being, a rookie or a sophomore. Like, he's an established NHL player now who hasn't quite reached his ceiling. So yeah, I think he could use a change of scenery. And for New York, it seems like, they're trying to sort of retool this thing on the fly as well, so that they don't end up in the same spot they were last year. So I could see them, agreeing to that and trying to move him for a different player who maybe fits what they're trying to do a little more.
I mean, we've done this a few times over this episode, thinking about potential spots for these guys and potential trade partners or whatever. I wonder about the Rangers and Carolina maybe doing some kind of deal that involves Lafreniere and Svechnikov. Russian players love New York, and obviously, there's a lot of history there. And we've seen those two clubs make deals with each other before, most recently for K'Andre Miller. So
true.
Again, it's and it's fun to think about these sort of scenarios. That's part of this as well. Like, bringing up the player, they need a change of scenery. Where could they go? Who could be trade partners? All of that. So anyway,
listen, I like the shout, and I respect you for trying, but I think the Carolina Hurricanes need to take on someone who's been proven. That's where they're at. They can't be taking shots on a guy like Lafreniere. They
can't do
who should take a shot on him, but I don't know if it's Carolina.
Well, and I think that's a good point too, Case, because look at the Kotkaniemi experiment and how that's gone so far.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I feel like
center right now.
Yes,
yeah, I feel like Lafreniere too is just a lot of what Carolina has kind of just always had, which I think they're trying to stray away from. Like the sort of one-dimensional, like, scoring type, but doesn't really bring a lot of other intangibles. So in terms of value, I think it might make sense. Like who would have to pay additional there if you're trading Svechnikov for Lafreniere? Like, I feel like it's relatively close, no? Am I wrong on that?
It's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one. May have to circle back on that.
Yeah.
at a later time.
Yeah. So in terms of value and trade partners, maybe, but in terms of what Carolina, I think, actually wants to get out of it, maybe not.
I'm going to say the Rangers would have to pay a little bit more.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Svechnikov is just, he's more proven than Lafreniere.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Otherwise, if you're Carolina, the only reason why you'd be paying more is because Lafreniere has that first overall pick pedigree, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think Svech is more proven.
Yeah. Anyway, always fun to do this kind of episode. Change of scenery. It's a good topic and all good players brought to the table for this one. Anything else to add before we wrap up, fellas?
Just to say that now that the Jays are out, it's time for people in Toronto to start focusing on the Leafs again and
on the Raptors.
And boy, if the Leafs don't start playing a little bit better, it's going to be pandemonium in the city because people are pissed.
Yeah. That's the other reason why Toronto sports fans are so depressed, not only because the Jays are done, but because now they actually have to care again about the Leafs, and you could throw the Raptors in there as well. Yeah. So, because it hasn't been going great to start for those two clubs. So anyway, again, just thank you to the Blue Jays for this incredible season, bringing this country together. It was awesome, and looking forward to next year. All right. Thank you for listening to episode 253 of the Boys in the Booth podcast, proud partner of iPlay Hockey. We will chat with you again next week. Take care.